Welcome back to the Go Figure reviews after a long pause, which I do admit was a long one. I'm trying to get back on track and talk to you some more about some of the figures in my collection. Recently, if you've been following the videos I've been posting, I mostly posted sort of general videos about what I really have in my entire collection, so in those videos I really wasn't talking much. I would just show you in its entirety what I got, but this time I'm gonna try and go back on track and just try and talk about different groups of toys. Today I would like to talk to you about something I did not speak about before. It's the Masters of the Universe Classics. Now this is the most universally recognized character that we have right here, which is He-Man on top of a Battle Cat, the most famous fighter known in the universe, defending the good and all that sort of thing. Invented in the year 1982, and at that time we also see the birth of the Filmation cartoon series that made the character even more popular, closely followed at the same time by an actual toy line of the same name called the Masters of the Universe. And that first initial creation of He-Man and the popularity of it lasted from 1982 to 1987, and it spawned a very successful toy line, cartoon series, a long-running cartoon series, and a live-action movie with Dolph Lundgren in the title role of He-Man. And there were many more incarnations of He-Man later on as the decades went by, but this is the latest incarnation that I'm going to talk about today. This is a figure that belongs to the series of He-Man figures that started in 2008, and they are called Masters of the Universe Classics. The idea was to introduce all the known and lesser known characters from all the eras and decades of different interpretations of He-Man to the collectors, and specifically aim them at the adult collectors. So what Mattel did, they would release one figure each month and create it into a subscription service, so that if you want to have the entire set for the year, you would have to subscribe. And after that, they would just release one figure at a time every month, and if you don't want the subscription, you could always buy it on a thing that became known as a day of sale, which would be roughly middle of every month, that you could directly buy it from the Mattel on their website at a slightly higher price, I would say, and at a limited stock as well. But anyway, that's how the line was created and how it got it started. It's still on at the present moment, and it still seems to have at least another 2 or 3 years, from what I heard, to go before they complete the whole idea of what they intend to release still. So let's start with He-Man here. He comes with his weapons, especially his power sword, the shield, and there is an axe that can be stored at the back of him. And he's riding on Battle Cat, who has a removable mask and a hinged draw. So you can display him any which way. Even the armor, the saddle is removable as well. But I will not go through that because it might take too much time to put it on and off. But yes, it has the belt underneath that you can just remove, and then the saddle will come off. So that will be the Battle Cat. But the very first figure released in this line, it was not He-Man, surprisingly enough. The very first one they tried to test the waters in 2008 is King Grayskull here, who looks exactly like He-Man with some slight differences. This is supposed to be a great ancestor of He-Man, the very first ruler of Eternia. And he comes with very long hair, a plastic heavy-duty cape that's nicely molded, but it would be better if it was cloth. And he came without his steed at that time. The steed, meaning the Battle Lion, was released countless years later. But he was the first, and he created the popularity for the whole line, and he was released initially in three different versions. This would be the regular version. The second version would be same exact figure with the same accessories, but in a color bronze. So the whole figure was colored bronze. And the third variant was again the same figure, same accessories, but in sea blue color. The sea blue colored one is the most rarest of the three, closely followed by the bronze one. And this one is not as rare, but the value did go high for him because he was the first figure in the line. Now, there was one more King Grayskull exactly like this one, released a couple of years later, or reissued if I can put it that way, with some slight differences in the sense of color schemes on the actual uniform. The cape in that other one would be royal red, and there would be some accents on the actual cross and different colors there. But other than that, it would be again the same exact figure, and one new accessory for that particular King Grayskull would be like a small round blue orb, which my guy doesn't have because he never came with that particular one. But if you have that later version, then you get a sort of a magic orb packed with it. So anyway, Battle Lion here looks exactly the same, just like King Grayskull. They look exactly the same as they appeared in the 2000X cartoon series in one singular episode about the past of He-Man's ancestor. This particular Battle Lion does have a removable mask, but it's so loose that it has to have these see-through rubbers to just keep the mask in place, so that's why I don't like to remove it. But it can be removed just like in the case of Battle Cat. And as if you see them side by side, Battle Lion and Battle Cat are pretty much the same type of toy. The only difference is the Battle Cat came first, Battle Lion came later, and Battle Lion is just modified a little bit to look different from Battle Cat and given a different equipment. The saddle, the protectors for the paws and the mask, and his head was molded to look much bigger, of course, in order to be able to tell them apart. Even their tails look different. The one on the left, Battle Lion, he would have a puffy tail at the end, like any lion would. And Battle Cat, of course, that wouldn't have that particular matter. And the coloring scheme is just slightly different. Battle Cat has yellow stripes, and the Battle Lion is plain green all the way. So, I decided to put these guys side by side since they are ancestors and related in a way. They might as well share the spotlight in the center here. Now, the next character that was important in the context of He-Man is the person who gave him those powers, and that would be Sorceress, right here, the lady that's in a bird costume. She appeared in practically all the incarnations of He-Man cartoon series, the earliest one being the Filmation series. And she granted him the powers to He-Man when he was not He-Man yet. The original secret identity of He-Man was Prince Adam. And he was bestowed the powers of Grayskull when he was given by the sorceress the magic sword that contained that power, to use that power whenever there is a danger. In which case he would, as we all know, or at least for us who are familiar with He-Man, he would just raise the sword above his head and say, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power," and his very fearful pet, Cringer here, who had a big appearance in the Filmation series, his scaredy cat pet, would get transformed at the same time into Battle Cat. So that's how it went in the cartoon series, that's how it went in the early comics as well. And it was established form that this was their secret identities. This is how He-Man and Battle Cat looked like before they transformed. A clumsy, lazy prince who was only pretending to be clumsy in order to hide his identity, and his faithful pet, Cringer. Now, Prince Adam belongs to a royal family of Eternia called the House of Miro, which is practically the name derives from Prince Adam's grandfather, King Miro, who ruled Eternia before. Now, when King Miro disappeared in battle, one of his sons, King Randor here, who is also the father of Prince Adam, took the place as the new king of Eternia. In this figure, we see King Randor in his classic sort of a battle dress. He comes with the sword and the staff, and both the sword and the staff have a particular emblem on it that would probably resemble the He-Man's cross, I would say, that he wears on his chest, which alludes that that's where He-Man may or may have not gotten that particular cross to wear on his chest. And another version a couple of years later that was released was this particular King Randor, which is not exactly the same figure, but it is the same character, with one major difference, that this particular King Randor was released to look like he did in the Filmation cartoon series, in his royal robes. And of course, the best part, his wife, Queen Marlena, the mother of Prince Adam, was released as well. She came together, packed together with Cringer, the little kitten right here. Now, interesting story about Queen Marlena. Her background is that she came from Earth, and she was a woman astronaut who crash-landed in Eternia during an unsuccessful exploration trip. Young King Randor found her and saved her from the burning wreckage of her spaceship, and the two fell in love, and she decided to stay, never to return to Earth. And they had 2 children. Prince Adam was one, but Prince Adam also had a twin sister, which is this lady right here. Her name is Princess Adora. She was kidnapped as a child, according to one story, by 2 evil leaders of the bad guys. One from a place called Eteria, which is like a parallel universe or another dimension. And the other one was Skeletor, the leader of all the evil warriors on Eternia. They kidnapped her when she was a baby, and Hordak took her to raise her as her own in Eteria. And he put an evil spell over her so that she would never remember who her real family is. And that story can be seen in more detail if you can get a DVD called The Secret of the Sword, which in detail tells you that story, how the brother found his long-lost sister. Both of them possess the power to transform into heroes. Adora here comes equipped with a laser gun, and she comes with her power sword that her brother, Prince Adam, gave it to her. And it has a little diamond on it where she can communicate with the sorceress through it. And when she raises her sword, she would say something slightly different from her brother. She would say, "For the honor of Grayskull." And she would transform from that moment into a lady called She-Ra. And her ordinary horse that she's riding on would become a flying unicorn horse with special powers. As you can tell, when Adora transforms, she looks more muscular and looks like an actual warrior, and she would give a hard time to all the evildoers out there. This is one of the roughly 3 versions of She-Ra that was released. The first one was not able to split her legs apart and wouldn't be even able to ride the horse, which was a bit of a nuisance. But when the horse was released, Mattel decided to release another figure of She-Ra that can actually do a split and easily sit on top of the horse. So here we go. Now, her horse Spirit here has the detachable wings, which I would rather not remove. They're so difficult to put back in. And he has a removable mask that can just reveal an ordinary face underneath. But again, I would rather not remove it because some of these pieces would be molded in such a sensitive way that if you try to reattach them, they would easily fall off. So it's better to just keep them plugged in. But if you want to experiment with yours, by all means. So anyway, this is She-Ra in her transformed state and her horse, Spirit. So, one small detail I forgot about the sorceress. She has, among many powers, being a protector of the fortress called Grayskull, she has the ability to transform into a bird. Meaning this bird, called Zoar. In order to be able to fly over great distances and inform Adam or He-Man about the impending dangers that could affect the entire Eternia. She's very wise. The sorceress is very wise and has a great deal of knowledge about the past and the future and the present. She's there as a mentor and advisor to Prince Adam to guide him through fighting the evil and preserving his secret. Now, we're gonna meet some other members of the family here, or some close allies of the family. We have here the best commander that King Randor has in his royal army, and that would be Man-at-Arms. That's his title, or his real name would be Duncan. He appeared in the early comics and in the entire Filmation cartoon series, and he also appeared as a vintage action figure. The only problem was the vintage action figure did not have the little mustache, and in the cartoon, as we all know, he would always wear a mustache. And this figure from the classics was released with the actual mustache, so that's nice. Although you did get an extra head if you want to display him without the mustache, to make him more younger looking. Man-at-Arms is a very known character to all the fans out there and anybody who ever watched anything regarding He-Man. And he would be in a way considered a second father to Prince Adam, or a person who would really try best to mentor him in the ways of judgment and in the ways of thinking and in the ways of especially of fighting abilities and teaching the young prince how to fight, how to conduct himself as a prince, and how to keep his secret a secret, because there would be only 3 people who know of Prince Adam's secret that he can transform. That would be Man-at-Arms, the sorceress, and Prince Adam's little friend, a very clumsy but cute little wizard called Orko, right here, who came from another world by accident called Trolla, and he got permanently stuck on Eternia and befriended the young prince and decided to remain there. He would be used as a court magician to entertain the royal couple, but he would usually mess his tricks up so badly that the Man-at-Arms would really get mad at him at times, and Man-at-Arms would be usually his victim when something goes wrong with the tricks, by dropping accidentally eggs on top of him and things like that. Orko is not mean-spirited, but ever since he was robbed of his magic stick in the cartoon series, his magic has not been so good, and it will backfire most of the time. But he has a good heart, and he's a faithful friend of Prince Adam, and goes through so many adventures and fights against evil together with him. Now, I have another version of Orko that was released at that time, and this particular version of Orko was considered an exclusive, and he has a small action feature that if you dunk him into a glass of warm water, not too hot of course, just mildly warm, his color red would completely disappear, and he would become invisible or see-through, which is a very neat feature. And then of course you could bring the redness back. I don't like to dunk him too many times because I'm afraid that maybe the paint that's inside would just eventually disappear and he wouldn't change anymore. But anyway, I'll show you both of them, the regular and the other one side by side. They came with pretty much the same accessories and the same mold. And of course both of these Orkos were packaged with Prince Adam figure. These were the main characters and Prince Adam was more like an accessory, which was so funny because he's bigger than Orko. But anyway, you would get 2 figures for a price of 1. And this figure here is something from the newer releases, that this character never existed before in this form, and it was specifically made with the idea of what happens when He-Man grows old and retires from all the fighting and becomes the new king of Eternia after his father Randor. The idea at Mattel was that this would how he would look like once he becomes a king. you can tell that he resembles his father in many ways. The hairstyle, for example. Even the attire is very similar. I will put them here side by side for you to see. And even their weaponry is more or less the same, especially the staff that bears the same cross in a different color this time. But you can tell that there is a resemblance between a father and son. Now, of course, He-Man's face here looks more rough from so many fights he had and so many adventures he had. He even has a scar on his cheek there, or right across the eye. And the sword he's carrying is not his usual power sword. The indication is that in the 2000 cartoon series that I mentioned earlier, he was given a completely new power sword which is more based on science and magic combined. So Mattel went back to that idea and decided to give him, when he's an older king, to give him that sword. That makes you think, what happens to his regular sword, this one right here, the regular classic power sword? It seems that that power sword would go to his son, because as the story goes that in the future when He-Man becomes king, he will have a son with Teela, his longtime love interest, which would be this girl here, who is also an adoptive daughter of Man-at-Arms, and she is also the actual daughter of the sorceress, protector of Grayskull Castle. She grew up with Adam side by side, fighting all the bad guys, and she would be a captain of the guard in the Royal Guard. She is a woman warrior, raised as a warrior, and eventually she will become the new sorceress once her mother is gone. And it turns out that the two of them would end up together in this story, have a son, and that son will become the new He-Man, and he will carry his father's actual classic power sword. Now, the figure of their son was not made as of yet, but there is an indication that we may or may not see that figure in the near future. So this is Teela, the very known character from the royal family and from the Filmation series. And to take it one step further, this is also Teela, but this is the first version of Teela that was released. How she first looked like before the cartoon even started. You can tell that she looked very differently from the one that came later on, and I'll put them side by side to prove my point here. The one on the left here is the first version. The one on the second is the one that's most known among the people. The one on the left is more barbarian in look, but she comes with a sword and a laser, and she was still an adoptive daughter even in this version of Man-at-Arms. But she was beautified a bit more later on and given a more serious look on the right hand side here. But in reality, they both look good. It's just that it's really what's the matter of your preference, personal preference. I like to have both of them because it proves how far the character changed as the years went by. So that would be Teela in two different versions. The classic Teela, the redhead one, and the barbarian one that would be called Battleground Teela. Now, this elderly fellow here never existed in the Filmation. He was specifically created for the purpose of the 2000X cartoon series, which was the third incarnation of He-Man. And in that incarnation, this fellow was supposed to be the original Man-at-Arms, way before Duncan became Man-at-Arms. And this is practically, according to the cartoon at least, he appeared only in one episode. He is the actual teacher and mentor of Man-at-Arms, teaching him everything he needs to know to become the Man-at-Arms. And you can tell that both of them would carry the same type of weapon, which is given to a position of a Man-at-Arms, this heavy-duty mace. And of course, if you're a Man-at-Arms or the main commander of the royal troops, you need to know everything about strategy, about weaponry, battle tactics. So this is Man-at-Arms Duncan here, and this is the original Man-at-Arms on my right hand side. So that's as far as these guys go. So there is a lot of interconnection between the characters. Loyalty, family ties, and so forth to make them closely knit together, I guess. Now, what we're going to talk about here is the last part as far as these figures go. These would be, of course, not men-at-arms. I know that would be the first thing you guys would probably think, why is he showing me a bunch of men-at-arms figures here? No, this is not men-at-arms, but close enough. These guys would be the Royal Guards, meaning the troops of men-at-arms that he leads into the battle, and I have 4 different ones. Now, why do I say 4? First of all, when Mattel released these guys, they would be packaged in a box of 2. They would be coming with an arsenal of weapons that you can interchange. They would come with these visors here that could be plugged over their faces. They would come with 4 different heads. 2 human and 2 alien looking heads. I will show you one of those heads because there is quite a story behind it. This fellow right here. He has a human head, but this is the catch. What you're looking at is the face of the brand manager for Mattel who was representing the Masters of the Universe Classics up until last year. From 2008 up until last year, he was this was the face of the person who represented Mattel's brand of He-Man. And his name, to most of you, will sound familiar, I assume. His name was, his name is Scott Knightlick, or as he's using a pseudonym named Toy Guru. What Mattel did to just honor him for doing a job for them and representing the line, they decided to mold his face to represent one of the guards. And he ends up getting his own face on one of the figures. Now, when you have a helmet like this on the Royal Guard, that means this is the way the soldiers of the Guard looked like in the 2000 cartoon series. But there was a small piece included to attach onto that helmet, which is this visor right here. And when you attach it across the face, what you will get is a slightly modified version of the Royal Guard. Just a moment, please. You will get the version of a Royal Guard with the visor the way he looked in the Filmation cartoon series. So you can tell that the main difference between the 2 Royal Guards would be that visor. With the visor, he looks more vintage, more more Filmation style, and then without the visor, he looks more 2000 series. Now, mind you, these army builders were never released in the vintage line, or in the New Adventures of He-Man line either, or in the 2000 series, but now in this present line, the classics, they would come, and some people would like to army build them and get up to 5-6 packs of them, have a huge army for the purpose of dioramas. In my case, I only have 4, is what you can see here. I never went beyond that because I simply don't have the money nor the space. But if you guys like to go nuts with it and get as many as you like, you could have some really kick-ass dioramas if you have time to build some. So anyway, this is just the first part about talking about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Classics. I'm hoping to cover more in batches like these, of a bunch of them at the same time, so that I can cover bigger numbers of them. And stick around. I hope to see you guys soon, and please subscribe if you like what you see and what you hear, and catch you guys later. Bye.